Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Security Squawk podcast. It's your weekly dose of real-world cybersecurity events and expert commentary to go along with it to help businesses stay secure in today's threat landscape. This week's headlines, guys, feel like something out of a cyber thriller. A ransomware gang is now telling victims to call their lawyer. We're going to dive into that little twist in this cat and mouse game of cybersecurity and ransomware that we always talk about, and what one particular ransomware group is doing to turn up the heat to hopefully get paid by businesses and kind of use that psyops that we talk about to get people paid. Will it work? You think it's clever? We do, so we want to talk about it on the show. And there's over 50 million patient records exposed as insurance giants are grappling with ransomware outages that won't quit. And healthcare is under siege as well. So myself, Andre, and Randy today, we've kind of brought our own stories to the table this week. We're switching up the format a little bit. So throw us a comment if you like what you're seeing here. You're going to hear each of us introduce a cybersecurity story that caught our eye, and then the three of us will dive into it like we normally do. So let's jump right in. So first up on the docket, Andre brings to us this Qilin ransomware, and adding this call your lawyer tactic to pressure victims. What's going on here, Andre?
Yeah, good morning. So this one is really interesting. So we have a ransomware group called Qilin, and I'm going to explain it kind of like the franchise model, right? So you have a ransomware group, and then what they do now is they sell their tool and their services to the smaller guys to say, hey, use this tool, and we'll do some type of, 80-20 cost split and go make money and, good luck. But now what we're seeing more now is that they're providing more back support. And specifically, they have this call a lawyer feature. So typically when you get a ransom, you get a red screen that says, you have ransom and pay us this money by this date, or we're going to lock all your accounts. But now imagine, in addition to that, you're getting the following message. And I found an example, and it says, good afternoon. I'm the legal counsel for the affected party. We reviewed the nature of your data and have identified multiple areas of potential regulatory non-compliance, including exposure of PII under GDPR and HIPAA. At this time, we're prepared to do a public disclosure statement and notify relevant oversight bodies unless an agreement is reached within the next 48 hours. This includes notifying your industry regulators, clients, and the press. So they're essentially now sending a letter to the person that's affected, to this company, saying, hey, I'm an attorney for this, for this ransomware group. And if you do not go ahead and pay, we are going to go ahead and disclose this. In whatever industry you may be regulated, or we know who your customers are, we're going to send notice. Imagine that type of pressure now that business owner, CEO, is now going to get, because he's like, wow, even if I do have a backup of my data, I got these people's lawyers claiming that they're going to now go and tell the world.
Wow. I mean, thank you for that. And this could play out so many different ways. Because as you were talking, the first thing that came to my mind was like, wow, I was like, with AI, you really don't need to call a lawyer to find out what you're up against. So it's like, in one way, is this almost like a last ditch effort for, ransomware operators to remain in control of the situation by saying like, hey, go over here and talk to our people, and so we can scare you more instead of running to AI, because maybe that's what they see victims doing, is like trying to figure out how to deal with ransomware and using AI to negotiate and things like that, which is very possible. So I'm just kind of curious as to how this will play out long term. But those are the things that kind of, popped up in my brain as you were talking, Andre. It was like very interesting that they've added this feature to inform you, like, yeah, talk to a licensed and real lawyer. I mean, what do they have? Partners of lawyers who are in on this with them? I mean, the lawyers would be. I mean, if you're a U.S. based lawyer, maybe if you're a lawyer in some other part of the world, I guess you could get away with this. But if you're a U.S. based lawyer and you're aiding and abetting a cyber like this, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, it's I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head around this angle from so many different ways. So my vote is that this is going to be like a flash in the pan type of a thing that we see from ransomware groups, because I don't see how this plays out long term.
Yeah, like why would you want to talk to the lawyer of the people that are trying to rip you off? Like somebody's going to fall for it. We know that, right?
Yeah.
That's like getting, waking up from an operation in a hospital and, they accidentally cut off your leg and they're like, oh, we accidentally cut off your leg. Here's the number to our lawyer. Call if you have questions. And it's like, that doesn't make sense.
Right, but I think it's also just more. It could be a bluff because the whole goal is for the person that's affected to pay. So
I'm digging in a little bit deeper here. These are in-house lawyers, and they also have in-house journalists as well that they have they're using them to write extortion copywriting, communication on spam tools. So they're just using journalists for this stuff, and potentially, I guess maybe, hey, talk to a journalist and learn what could end up in the news as a result of this.
Yeah.
I mean, Qilin, one of the major ransomware players in 2025. They're right up there with Klopp. As in April, they had 72 victims. In May, they had 55. They have 304 so far this year. So that's 2 a day. We're only halfway through. We're not even halfway through the year yet. That's 2 a day. That's crazy. They're successfully hacking 2 companies a day. Large ransomware groups are, and these are large companies. These aren't little companies, as we will dive into. So, any last thoughts on this, guys?
No, I'm good. No, I think it's going to work, and it's a different angle that I believe is going to work.
Yeah, so some victims, just so you know, of this group that Andre is talking about. Cobb County, Georgia, we talked about that on the show. They've hit over 25 countries, targeting critical infrastructure, manufacturing, legal, healthcare. And they basically have affiliates all over the world. It's not just limited to the basically CIS countries or Russia and Belarus. So they have a geopolitical strategy, Oh, they don't target those countries. So they figure that those people are from those countries.
Yeah.
So they have protection from the government, essentially. So it allows them they allow them to operate.
So,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so if people had this, would y'all advise? Obviously not, but what would y'all advise when they've got a link that says call your lawyer? Who should they call? Who should they call first? Should they start negotiating with the people? I mean, I know we talk about that a lot, but pretty obvious answers. But what do y'all think?
It just depends on your situation. If you have an IT company, if you have cyber insurance, these things, those are going to be who you call first. I mean, if you don't have those things, then I don't know who you call.
We're not going to call the lawyer though, right? From the.
I mean, I just think that people aren't going to know, right? People, there are going to be companies where they don't know what to do, and they're going to end up calling that number,
right?
Or calling that. I mean, look, we already know it happens because the ransomware notes come out, and people go to the link for the chat support. You know what I mean? And they start figuring out what they got to do or what's going on. So, I think the same thing will play out here. So,
I mean, knowing most businesses, they're going to want to throw this under. I mean, they're not like regulated or those type of smaller businesses. They're like, what's the fastest way can I get rid of this problem? And if it means that not calling my own lawyer, not calling my insurance company because I don't want my rates to come up or they're going to deny me later on anyways. And if I got to shell out a couple of $1,000s or whatever the dollar amount is, I may just do that. And all right, I need to get my business back up and running. My systems are down, pressure. All right, fine. I'll stroke the check if I have the cash.
Yeah. And I mean, so let's just take a look at this group, right? Because Qilin, essentially they haven't been around too long, a couple years, right? And when they first came out, they were, essentially a basic malware ransomware group. And if we look at what's going on now, they've evolved into what I would term a fully serviced criminal organization, a fully, business. They have negotiators on their team now, which they didn't have in the beginning. They have legal on their team now, which they didn't. They have media journalists on their team now, which they didn't, which means they're making money. And instead of just hiring more developers, more, people to perfect their software or work on their software, they're finding people to do other areas that help them get paid, right? And that's what I see, right? These roles that they've created in their businesses or roles that they said, hey, if we have this person or that person, it increases our chances of getting paid,
right?
So it's just interesting. And then we have to be serious about what's going on geopolitically right now, guys. I mean, we are at a point right now with what happened over the weekend with us bombing Iran is they don't have a military like we do to respond in the same way. But what they do have is about 10 to 15 years of reconnaissance and God knows what backdoors and who knows what of burying themselves deep into the networks of governments and businesses across the United States. And one day we might find out how bad that is.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of it is like, that is like, I really do think that there's a potential, and I don't know how this is going to play out, but there's a potential that this could turn into when we bomb countries, our businesses go down and get hacked.
Yeah.
And you have to understand as businesses that you may have been running for the last 25 years without doing this stuff, without thinking like with the attitude that like, oh, we're never going to get hacked.
Yep.
I know we've been saying it for years and years, but I mean, you want to put gasoline on a fire. That's what just happened. And I feel like when you back somebody like this in the corner, if they don't come to their senses and kind of do what needs to be done and they want to fight back, this is how they're going to fight back.
Yeah.
And they're going to hit businesses. They're not going to hit governments.
And we are going to be the innocent bystanders. I always tell my clients that. And
you're going to learn, what these little countries like North Korea, Iran, and Russia have built in terms of a cyber, an offensive cybersecurity. Because these are the guys that we see hacking businesses when this stuff isn't going on.
Yep.
And the other thing is, guys, unfortunately, and this is really the crux of it. If you're a business and you don't choose to do this stuff right, these Iran specifically, they don't have a lot of ways to make money.
Yep.
And they need to fund the continuation of this bombing. So if you don't think that they're going to use hacking and stealing money from businesses in the United States through ransomware and other means of misdirection of funds to fund this war, you're severely mistaken. That is how they're going to fund this war.
Yeah.
The private businesses around the world are going to unknowingly become victims and help Iran continue to lob bombs around the Middle East because that's all they have, but they need money to be able to do it. And this is how they're going to continue to bring the money in the door.
And what is your cyber policy going to say when it's time to pay?
It's excluded because it's a act of war.
Yep.
And people could be having hackers in their email. Let me tell you something right now. If you got hacked in the last week, I'd be highly concerned that it's Iran or some nation state doing it. And you think, oh, we got cyber. I had a conversation this weekend with somebody who's like, we got insurance. Okay. Number one, they don't have cyber insurance. They just have a basic business policy with a little bit of rider for cyber crime in there, which is not real coverage. Number one. And number two, everything's excluded when it comes to an act of war.
Yep.
And an act of war doesn't have to be declared today. It could be declared in 6 months or a year. And the insurance companies will go back and say, oh, well, that was the war. It just wasn't declared yet.
Right.
Now that they declared it, it could play out two different ways. They can deny your claim or tell you we're denying it until we decide what's going on here, or they could pay you and then act of war war is declared, and then they come back and say you owe us that money back. So we will see how it goes, gentlemen, but very interesting stuff here and great article, Andre. Appreciate you bringing that to the table today. Moving right along, another favorite industry of the cyber criminals is this healthcare, and healthcare is having a really tough time at it. We have two articles or two topics or companies that we want to highlight. One of those is Episource, and the other one's McLaren Health. Randy, what's going on with these two companies?
Yeah,
why is healthcare such a target? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about them separately because I don't know that they're related, but Episource is what you call a SaaS company, which is software as a service, which means they are a third-party provider, which, we hear that all the dang time, especially the last several weeks. They're a third-party provider of risk adjustment and medical coding. So I'm a hospital, I have a patient, certain stuff gets done, that gets sent out to Episource. Episource comes back and does the coding and the risk adjustment on it. And then the hospital can do the billing or whatever. Something along those lines, like hyper simplified, basically, but something along those lines. So Episource was hit 5.4 million records. So this makes this one of the largest SaaS, one of the largest breaches so far this year. They were in their systems back in the beginning of the year for looks like about a week or 9 days ish. They were able to get names, addresses, social security numbers, medical records, diagnoses, test results, medication, and insurance information. So it says no banking or payment card data was compromised. That's doesn't even matter, right? They can take that data that they have already, throw that into AI, send out 14 different bills to every single person, 5.4 million, and without even doing anything, most likely will get paid by a ton of people. So this is really significant because we've seen, like I said already, we've seen a ton of third-party breaches this year. And what that means is, like, I am a company and maybe I'm cyber secure, which, probably not in this case, but who knows. And then I use someone else for a specific service or set of services, and then they get breached. So it's a big deal from that perspective as well.
Yeah, what I always don't like when I see from providers, I always hear like, oh, we're HIPAA compliant, but there's so much of a big difference between being HIPAA compliant and being secure, because you can check mark all the boxes as you go and things like that. But if you're not doing what you're supposed to doing, and as you said, Randy, I would have preferred for them to have taken my banking information. But, once you get my social, once you get my test results and all that other, Medicaid IDs and all of that stuff, I'm screwed for a lifetime now.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, what you were saying there, Andre, like as you were talking about that, it's like, what responsibility do these healthcare providers have when these vendors are breached, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, HIPAA just says, hey, wherever there's patient information, just make sure you're encrypting it and securing it and handling it. But the big problem is these vendors can get breached, and these vendors have tools that can be used in a way where, like, we have what's called PHI leak, meaning like, hey, you use this tool, but then somebody downloaded the file to their computer and it's sitting in the downloads folder, right?
Mhm.
And we see this all the time with healthcare organizations, big and small, where this stuff just ends up in places that, through the use of the computer, the employees don't realize that they're actually putting it somewhere else, right? They just think, I just need this thing to show up on my screen. And, it could get saved in your downloads folder, your temporary internet files, who knows where. But a cyber criminal is going to scan the crap out of your computer when they get on there and try to find every little bit of information that they can, so they can use it, right? And that's the big problem here, and that's the responsibility that I think these third-party vendors have when it comes to this stuff. Like, they put tools in place, but they don't necessarily train the team that's using them on the risks. Like, hey, just use everything that's in here. But they don't say, like, hey, if you click download there, it's going to download it to your computer. So you need to make sure that either it's encrypted there, or you need to make sure that you're deleting it once you're done with it, or something like that. Or just, maybe build the software so it automatically deletes it off the user's computer once they close it out or something, right? These are things that, I think the vendors could do a better job at. And quite frankly, I apply this to every level of technology, including Microsoft and everybody else out there. Like, you can do a better job if you just take the time and think about what you're putting out there and how users are going to use it, and maybe make security a little bit kind of automatic or built in, so the average bloke doesn't have to know all this stuff, right? So
yeah, that downloads folder I've always seen that clients are like, oh no, we do everything in the cloud, and then you go in their download folder, years of financial data and stuff like that, and clear text, socials, everything, man.
Yep. Or
the
the recycle bin happens there too. They think they deleted it, and it's just sitting in there.
It also happens in the temp files, because one time, in fact, is the most risk we ever found at a company. And they're like, oh no, we just, it's all in the cloud. We don't even look at it. And it turns out that they were opening a PDF, and all of those for, years were going it back in their temp files. So I would also say, for these guys, this company, Episource, 5.4-ish million records, they should have noticed that going out of their system. They should have been monitoring traffic in and out of the machines, monitoring traffic in and out of the servers, in and out of the firewalls. They should have caught 5.4 million records going out in 9 days. So we're talking several 100,000 a day. Maybe it was all at once. Maybe they trickled it, so they wouldn't get caught. But it seems like they should have caught that.
So who's going to give the notice? Because us, the clients or the patients, we don't have a relationship with them. So now that's going to be up to each provider to decide if they want to give notice to us, or are they going to now say, hey, you've never heard of us, you never used us, but your doctor's office over here was using us, and this is what happened.
And that may be why this is developing so slow, because this was from the end of January and the early February when they were discovered, and that may be part of it, what you're saying there. That's what happened with the school, the Power School stuff. Does Power School, or do they need to notify, or do the local school districts whose data was leaked, do they need to notify?
That's what happens.
So Randy, we want to bury the healthcare industry a little bit more in this segment, and kind of point out like how bad it really is, right? Because we come on this show and we say it's really bad out there all the time. right? And companies just aren't doing enough. And sometimes we'll get comments from people saying like, how do you know? You don't know. Yes, we do. Like, we can read articles and basically be like, Jesus, this is a shit show. And I would consider McLaren Health in that boat. It's, McLaren Health confirmed in 2023 that they had ransomware. I think we covered it on the show. I know I did a YouTube about it, but there's been some things that happened after that we're learning that happened at McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
Sensitive data exposure, including names, social security numbers, medical records.
Yeah.
Why don't you fill everybody in on kind of what you've discovered here with McLaren?
Yeah.
In August of 24.
Yeah. So this would be yet another major attack. So this one happened July 17th through August 3rd. So they were in the system. What is that? 17 days, 2.5 weeks ish in the system. 743,000 plus or minus individuals were impacted. This was both McLaren hospitals and Karmanos Cancer Institute. They were able to get the names, social security numbers, driver's license numbers, health insurance details, and medical information. Once again, this is a gold mine for the bad guys, if you will. Pop this into ChatGPT or Chat GPT, as I call it, bad GPT, a version of it that'll do bad stuff. Come up with basically an email campaign, a billing campaign. People get bills. You go to the hospital, you get bills from like 14 different people. It's really confusing, and it's really easy. When there's confusion, it's easy to rip people off. So this attack disrupted their IT systems across multiple hospitals, cancer centers, clinics, and it was a big deal. And like you had already mentioned, this has happened before with them. We know of in 2023, they had one that affected 2.2 million people. And so, they're doing the whole like free credit report for people, free credit monitoring or whatever. But, this is not good. It's like giving them a black eye in the other eye, after they just got a massive.
Yeah, but it's more concerning than that to me, because you have a company that was already had to deal with ransomware once, and then about a year later, they have another incident. And when that incident happened, they initially came out and said there was no data exfiltration. And then this disclosure didn't happen until now. So it took them that long to figure out that there actually was data exfiltration.
Yep.
So is this, in your opinion, I don't know, because I'm about to say, is this criminal? Because if they knew about it and decided like, we're not going to admit to this until it hits the dark web or it's publicly disclosed, or did they really not have the telemetry and they didn't know? And in that case, I think you have to say something different than there's no indication of data exfiltration is one thing, meaning we have the telemetry and there's no indication. But if you don't have the telemetry and you can't tell, which is a very real thing, you can't come out and say that. You can say, we don't have the technology in place to be able to detect whether data was exfiltrated. So we're really not sure. That is what you should have said back then, and you didn't, and you gave people a false sense of security. And now, a year later, you're telling people that 750,000 records were stolen.
Yep. And I think that's the strategy. Let's play stupid until it comes out, and then after that, we'll say.
But you're going to get criminally prosecuted for doing this stuff. Like you just are. It's against the law to actually lie about what you know when it comes to a data breach.
And this is not a 15-person one CEO trying to make a decision. This is a $6.6 billion hospital.
No, but this is why companies like we saw the CIO of, I think it was United Healthcare or somewhere, get charge or sue. They tried to sue them, and then that went away because I essentially don't believe that most CIOs or CISOs are really in charge. They're people above them that are telling them what they can and can do and can't spend money on. So ultimately, it goes back to the CEO at the end of the day.
Yeah, 26,000 employees, 6.6 billion in annual revenue. So they're not dummies. They know what they're doing.
Right.
You know, your question, I think, kind of sums it up in: are they being negligent, actually criminally negligent, or do they really just not know? So are they dumb, basically? And you know, it's hard to tell here.
I think they're criminally negligent and they know it, but they think they're smarter than the law.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know.
They think that's what it, and they're not. I'm not wrong in saying that because the laws we have on the books aren't strict enough, and they don't spell things out enough.
Right.
Because our government takes forever to catch up to this stuff, and while they know what's going on, because the government is impacted by these attacks, and they look into it and they go, "Oh, Jesus Christ," you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, the government doesn't do anything either to enforce this stuff. So it's just a big hamster wheel until we actually get a handle on it. It's just going to be, big companies figuring out every little angle to get out of this stuff, and the little guy's going to suffer until then.
And that's exactly what it was. They sat in a closed boardroom meeting, no cell phones, with the attorneys, and said, if we do option A, what's going to happen and how much is it going to cost us? And if we do option B, what's going to happen, how much is it going to cost us? And they did a business risk evaluation, and this is what they thought. This is what they thought was the best option to do.
Are they owned by private equity, Andre?
I can ask. Let me check.
Because that may have swayed that decision. You know what I mean? Because they have strict, financial metrics to meet, if they are.
All right, guys.
Just a nonprofit.
Here we go. So moving right along, I want to talk about the insurance industry a little bit. They're our favorites. We mention them all the time, not necessarily as victims, but as people who are involved in the process of getting companies back up and running and recovered from this stuff. It appears that cybercriminals have taken a liking to insurance companies in the last 6 months. And this is very interesting because if you actually know what goes on in the insurance industry, guys, the insurance industry and insurance agents actually have some of the most restrictive cyber insurance requirements out there. So like insurance companies really shouldn't get hacked. And the other interesting thing is some pretty big insurance companies have been hit over the years, and it kind of flies under the radar, right? Because a lot of people don't know like the names of the companies that are really behind their cyber insurance policies or any policies that they have. Like, when you go buy insurance, a lot of times it's almost like a retail, that's the retail side of it, right? But there's wholesalers in the middle that sell those people the actual insurance and will pay the money when you actually need it. So a lot of people don't know the names of those companies, right? So Aflac is one of those retail companies that everybody knows who they are. Everybody knows the duck, right? And it's one of the growing list of major insurers that are suffering cyber attacks in the last week. So this company actually sells cybersecurity insurance, and they can't defend themselves. And we don't even know what that could possibly mean for policyholders. My big concern here is when cyber criminals know what your insurance policy has and covers, that is a huge amount of leverage that they have if they can successfully attack your company. This is a big deal in a lot of different ways. And this isn't the only company that's dealing with this. We also have Erie Insurance and Philadelphia Insurance, which are two kind of separate, very large insurance providers on the back end. Again, we work with a lot of insurance agents here at Exact IT. a lot of our insurance agencies sell Philadelphia Insurance and Erie Insurance as part of, their coverage and what they can offer out there. Those agents haven't been able to access these systems for these two companies in a week, which means they can't write any insurance for these two companies. They have to go to other insurance providers, right? Like Allstate or somebody like that, right? And they have to get quotes, right? So it not only hurts their business, these little small mom and pop insurance companies around the country that these two insurance companies serve, but it also hurts the market, because if I am buying a car right now and I need to buy insurance, I am not getting comparative quotes from these two companies. And I have to go with maybe one or two other companies that my agent can write a quote from. So it impacts things in a lot of different ways. And these two companies deciding to take their servers offline because of these events, which are not ransomware events, by the way. This is getting ugly for the insurance world, and I don't know where this is going to go in the next week. But I can tell you, Aflac, Erie, and Philadelphia being down is a huge wake-up call for this industry.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So what do you think, guys? Like, why do you like, is this just an untapped kind of industry in your mind? Like that the cyber criminals haven't really attacked yet. And now they're like, hey, look over here. We're like, these guys aren't doing it too well either. And they're a low hanging fruit. And I'm just going to tell you, like, again, we have a lot of experience in this space at the retail level. We work with a lot of those small, independent insurance agents that are out there. And it's a big deal. The ones we work with obviously do the right thing. But when we usually go in and, to a prospect in that industry, things are really bad there. Mm-hmm. Like in terms of like how they can get hacked and all the stuff that they have. And this isn't even at that level. This is at a level above them, where these companies should have decent cybersecurity in place.
But it's interesting. Two things that I saw in this article. The first thing is that it wasn't even malware; it was social engineering. Right. They got in through the front door, right? Without just like kind of like what MGM, if you guys remember what happened there. And then the second thing that also caught my eye is that they're saying that this is a Western-based cyber criminal group. So we talked about Iran and them needing to most likely get more funding, and they're going to use this. But they're saying that these guys are here in the US or in UK. So that's interesting, because for me, I think it's only a matter of time till they get caught. But also it's also interesting because if they are truly in the US and UK, they're calling Aflac with the American accent and saying, hey, click on the start menu and go to quick assist. I need to help you. I'm from your tech support or AI. Yeah. Right. But that just against to show you if these big companies can get compromised that easy. Just imagine someone calling your front desk receptionist and just saying, the other day I had someone call me, it was a sales call, quote unquote sales call. And they were like, hey, I just wanted to see what type of RMM you're using. Like that just came to my mind, and they act like they were from another company. But who knows? That's just that little piece that
it's only a matter of time before cyber criminals are using AI to call with English accents. If I'm a Russian and I don't know how to speak a lick of English, or my English is really bad, look, just like companies right now are building AI models to call businesses for cold calling, cyber criminals are probably building AI agents to call your business. When you get hit with a cyber attack, they're going to be calling you, and you're going to be talking to somebody who sounds like they work in your office.
And then they put the negotiator Chris Voss on there to try to okay, what do I have to do?
Hey, don't give anybody any ideas. Jeez.
No, but it's true, right? Like, how can I, if the person on the other side of the phone call is suspicious, what can I say to make it a little more convincing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just, good luck to the insurance world. This is very interesting to me on a lot of different levels. My brain always spins when I see stuff like this. Like, who pays for this?
Awesome.
right? Because like, are the insurance companies paying into their own policy, or are you just taking it out of your profits? Which at the end of the day is everybody, like me, you, and Andre, we're paying for this through our insurance policies, right? And then
well, I was just gonna say there's a lot of profit usually to draw from because
oh my god,
the risk base. I mean, and just for example, we've been a part of USAA, and USAA gives out like a profit disbursement, and even years when they've spent like $3 or $4 billion on like hurricane such and such, like they've still had a pretty decent amount of money, a profit to disburse. So I was just going to say these are cash cows, and maybe that's what's caught the attention of the bad guys.
All right, guys, that's it. It's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Security Squawk podcast. We covered a lot, from ransomware gangs wanting you to call their lawyers or legal help to educate you on what laws you broke and what regulations you're up against as a result of the ransomware on your screen. We got these healthcare data breaches affecting millions upon millions of people, and the unnerving reality that our cyber insurers are now vulnerable, and what that could mean in the future for businesses as your insurance companies are now getting attacked by cyber criminals at a very alarming rate. So we will always keep you updated. Always. And remember, if you enjoyed this show, hit that like button, share it with your network, and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you in the next video.